Hey, welcome back to another Just 15 Mins. Um, it's the coughing edition, so I do apologize if there's little pauses through the video. There you go. Um, you'd think by now I could just use AI to generate the voice, couldn't you? But I don't know. There's something missing, isn't it? It's very soulless. So anyway, what are we looking at today? Well, we're looking at a few things. It's really just a teaser of a deeper dive into some of these tools that I'm about to show. And the first part, because I've already covered a little bit of some local AI platforms like OLama over there, OLama, there we go, and LMStudio as well by NVIDIA. Um, but what we're looking at today is n8n, which is a secure AI native. I think they've just added that, but I don't blame them. Everybody else is doing that. Workflow automation, and it's very good. Now, I work with something like this, but it is more aimed at sort of like SMEs and dealing with ERP systems and things. However, the interesting thing, when you put this up against Zapier, I mean, I still like Zapier, so I'm not putting any of these things down. Zapier's got a really good reputation. It's been out there for a long time. Um, and apologies, that was a cough that I managed to get to the mute button. It's very professional, this, Um, but the idea is, yeah, make.com is the other one, which again, really good. But the reason I'm focusing on n8n is because you can run it locally. You can run it not just locally, but you can run it in your infrastructure. Okay. And so what does it look like? Well, that's a good example. It's your typical, you can drag and drop and have all these different tools and different things that join together in a workflow, but it's got some real nice tricks up its sleeve to do with data manipulation, linking obviously to APIs in any sort that you want, but also the fact, obviously, as it mentions right at the top there, um, it does have a lot of good AI native sort of integration, okay, which does mean, just to be clear, it does mean things like OpenAI, Claude, all those other ones. But as you'll find in a few minutes, we can also hook into local AI models as well, using, like I've mentioned, something like OLama or LM Studio, things like that, which which mean you can design these workflows for your business, especially if you've got sensitive data. This is what I've been talking to a lot of people about, is there's nothing wrong. And I mean, Microsoft Azure, AWS, all these big ones, they've got fundamental security in place that's really good, and a lot of businesses and enterprises and governments use those types of platforms, of course. So there's nothing wrong with that, but where you want maybe your own control, and certainly if you've got things like PDFs with sensitive data on, invoices, things like that, or whatever it might be, you might not want to send that data up into the cloud. Um, and you might just want to process that locally, and also for speed and really for just overall control of your infrastructure. So anyway, the idea is that you, with n8n, it's a workflow system. We'll have a quick look at it in a second, but have a look at the pricing. It's really quite interesting. You can see very reasonable for what you're actually getting if you look at the plans. Now, these are hosted by n8n, okay? You can host locally, okay? And you can, if you're an enterprise with sufficient, reason to do this, you can self-host this totally, okay? And it's a fully supported environment. However, there is also a community edition. And a startup one, actually, as you can see. But the community edition, obviously not to be used in production, but just to get a feel for this, can be run locally, which is really cool. And we'll go to our friendly, I'll just show you, but we'll go to our friendly Docker, basically. Docker desktop running locally, and I've downloaded. I'm like I say, there'll be a deep dive going through a lot of this setup very soon, actually. But this is the Docker. Well, actually, there's a Docker image, essentially, somewhere hiding down on the bottom here. Do you know what? I can't remember which one it is. Which one have I got? I've got one of these anyway. Oh, there it is. It's at the top there. Okay, so I've got an image. It's 639 meg for that. It's got another Docker container that runs alongside it. But either way, it's essentially running a container that you can start and stop. That's the great thing. And even on my really basic laptop, it's doing a reasonable job. Okay. Notice also I've got OLama running in a container as well. We'll get to that shortly. But the point being is this gives you a good in way to have a play with this without spending any money at all. Okay, and there's some really good documentation about self-hosting. Okay, so I'll put some links in the video notes below, but let's have a quick look. So I've spun up my Docker container running locally, and essentially once I've logged in, this is what I'm getting. Okay, so it's a canvas that you can start with. So let's just to show you some of the things. So we can click to say add, and then you've got, well, what's the first thing that you want to do? There's a lot of different things. You can run it manually, on a schedule, on a webhook from a different system, called by another workflow, which is really quite nice. Also with on a chat message. So for instance, with WhatsApp, Telegram, all those types of things. And there's also other ways you can run it. That's really good if you've got a more intelligent chatbot linked into your website or WhatsApp or things like that. Brilliant. But you can run it just manually, which we can do there. Okay. And then essentially, you've got the nice little drag and drop sort of thing. If we click there, now it's saying, well, what do you want to do? There's an action in an app. So, this is where you've got a lot of integrations, absolutely loads of different integrations that you can connect into. Okay. So I'm not going to go through all of those. There's far too many. But one thing that jumps out is obviously advanced AI. You've got the ability to create AI agents. Basically where you can chain AI requests with different models, perhaps, where they can all work together. They're not just individually working, they're working as an orchestration process. Okay, so that is really cool. And you can mix and match the large language models like GPT and everything like that. But you can also have local LLMs, which we'll have a look at, as I mentioned, in a second. So you've got a lot of interesting things here in the AI realm, but also more fundamental and boring perhaps is that you do have things like flow controls. So you can do, conditional filters, loops over different things, really well thought through, I think. That's what I get the feeling for. And on the mundane thing as well, data transformation. You really do need to be able to set up different things. Now, one thing I haven't actually seen is that you can do conversions to files and things like that. What happens if you want to be able to connect to a database? Now, interestingly, you can do a lot of aggregations, merges, summarizing, things like that. But one thing that I've been working with, if you work with Postgres, MySQL, Microsoft SQL, I've got a video coming out using Data API Builder where essentially any of those types of databases you can expose with really good security. You can expose the endpoints as REST or GraphQL endpoints, which basically means in your workflow like this, you can talk to a staging database, but using the API for that database, not necessarily a boring old SQL update query, which, you may find useful, but not always if you've got an API built on top. So that's coming soon to a cinema near you, as they say. Okay, so there's a lot of good stuff. So all of this is running locally. It's running on my local environment. This is just a teaser, just an intro, just to see what it is, what you can sort of start to do with this. But the other thing is, of course, is that I've mentioned OLama. So you can run large or small language models locally, okay? And again, my trusty Docker desktop, I haven't got it running at the moment, but I've got the OLama system working. You don't have to run it in Docker. I prefer Docker for virtually everything because I can start, stop. I'm not polluting my host system. So you know, that's fine. And OLama is brilliant. It really is. But also LMStudio from NVIDIA. You can download this for all the major platforms. Okay. And I've got it running here at the moment. Okay. So if I go to the main option here, now I haven't loaded a model, but you'll notice you've got a very familiar chat interface to start with. Um, like ChatGPT, whatever it is. But you can load a model. So you can, first of all, download a model. So you can download as many models as you like, but just be aware that the size of these models can start to increase. And it uses something really clever. And I don't fully understand it. I'm going to try to delve into it. But these models that you would expect, well, hang on a minute. I haven't even got an NVIDIA graphics card, by the way. And these models work. They're not snappy, but they're reasonable. They're reasonable. And they use something called quantization. So they can quantize the LLM vectors, basically. So all the data that's stored in these models are all vectors, where it's essentially numbers where you've got closeness to other related data. So a cat is related sort of to a dog in the animal sort of world, if you like. So all these things are vectors, basically. And that's why you've got vector databases, because they're not just storing numeric versions of text. They're computed sort of AI vectors. Okay, so maybe we'll go into that at some stage. But anyway, the point being is you can download. I've only got Llama 3.2 1 billion. Only 1 billion parameters. But anyway, the idea is you can download these models as many as you like. The one that I'm going to be looking at shortly is Phi 3, which is the Microsoft open source one, which they're using in the new Copilot Plus PCs. And the reason for that is that it's a very mighty little small language model, but can do a lot of stuff on your day-to-day data, basically. So I'm going to be looking at that. But where you can then use this with n8n is the fact that if you click on the developer tab, okay, you do have endpoints. So it will actually serve out. I don't have a model loaded at the moment, but this will serve out the LMStudio in a standard OpenAI like API, essentially. I can't show you those at the moment, but because I need to load a model. But anyway, the idea is you've got a standard API. Now, if you've got a standard API running locally, you can then go back into n8n Studio, and one of the things that you've got is, like I say, you can make HTTP requests. Okay, so you can get HTTP requests. So you might be uploading a document, extracting the data, and then passing it to your local LLM or small language model. Okay, by using something like LMStudio or OLama. So you can actually start to build these workflows, which I'll be doing in a deeper dive very, very soon, I promise. But you can do a lot of other stuff in here, which is really quite incredible. So I'm going to leave it there. It's a bit of a ramble, but it's a quick look through what you can do, where you can run n8n, more importantly, and how you can run it with local LLMs, as well as obviously the large language models up in the cloud. So until next time, subscribe and like if you wish, and we'll catch you on the next one.